Welcome to the Focus on Parliament show, our dear viewers. With me, Okotola, your host for today. The last couple of weeks, we have had a series, a chronology of security issues of different kinds. And that is those are the incidents that are going to inform our discussion for today, where we are discussing the state of security in our country, Uganda. With me today is Mr. Byamgisha Moses, an FDC mobilizer, but also author of Beyond the Chance, an autobiography. And then we have Mr. Harris Akampurira, who is the Speaker of Kawempe Division.
Thank you.
Our dear viewers, the last 2 weeks, we have witnessed 4 key incidents. The first being the killing of Mr. Charles Ngola, or Honorable Charles Ngola, an MP, but also a minister. We then witnessed the shooting or assassination of one of the top bloggers, known as Jaja Ishuli. Both these murders happened in Chanja. Away from that, in Nabweru, we had the police busting certain culprits alleged to be holding improvised explosives. And just a few hours ago, we just had a shooting at the Parliamentary Avenue of an Indian businessman. And as the details develop, we like to start right from there, Parliament. This week, my dear panelists, we had I believe the body of Mr. Charles Ngola was laid in state in Parliament, as is for generally any statesman. But an interesting issue that arose from that whole discussion, I think elicited by Mr. Semuju, was an issue around wages, which speaks to the wider state of welfare. I believe, as a recap, before we go into the other incidents and what they mean, I believe one of the things in particular we can extract from the assassination or the killing of Miss Honorable Charles is the issue around the welfare of workers. And I would like to start with you, Mr. Byamgisha. What do you think about this whole? Of course, it was elicited by the killing of Charles Ngola, but the state of welfare of people like the police and the general workforce of Uganda.
Thank you very much, and I'm happy to be here. Thank you, the viewers. You know, for as long as we have a society and a system that does not work for all, that does not support, that does not put the minimum base for everyone to be able to survive and thrive, we are likely to be having most of those challenges. I want you to focus on someone who is earning less than $500,000. But that $500,000 can go in areas of even 3 months. And he has a family to support, he has kids, he has dependents, he has a life to live. He goes to the same market like the rest of us go to. But to make matters worse, that person is armed. And as if that is not enough, he is guarding someone who is living in opulence. They see people carry bags of money out of their government offices. Those government officials make those innocent soldiers to carry those bags to wherever they take them. They see them giving out big notes to their girlfriends, to their henchmen, to their funny fundraisings. And a young man carrying that gun does not even have an opportunity, just the permission to go and check on the family. It ferments anger in that individual. And that's the challenge we are having. This country must realize that the welfare of its citizens is a security issue. It's not just a social issue.
True.
It's a security issue. You just talked about this shooting that happened hours ago at Parliament Avenue. A police officer, well dressed in his uniform, came in broad daylight.
Yeah.
In one arm, he was carrying an envelope. In another arm, he had a gun. He walked to the office of this man, Renda, an Indian. We don't know yet what sort of conversation took place there.
Yes.
The rest of us who work in the neighborhood had gunshots.
Oh.
Eventually, this police officer got out, reached on the roadside, made a phone call, and got a nearby border, and he left. And up to now, we don't know where he is. Then police, of course, cordoned off the area, and they brought big guns and what have you. I was talking to a security officer in the neighborhood, just these private security officers.
Yeah.
And they were saying, but this kind of anger, it's not... There are things that need to be resolved. As a country, we need to make a reflection. You cannot have two Ugandans, one which is living happily up there in the sky, and another one that is living in misery and continues to sink into poverty and misery. That whole situation ferments anger, and it calls for a national dialogue and a national consensus.
Yeah, thank you very much. And over to you, Harris. You're a lawyer, and you're pretty familiar with these labor movements right from their history. And we always know that there's this disconnect always with the establishment and the forces of unionizing labor. And I believe even within the discussions of the wage bill and minimum wage, welfare, these are some of the issues. This is the dynamic that plays out often. What do you think about this wage issue? Mr. Byamgisha elicits, and I think the two people who have come out to shoot in the last 2 weeks, Charles Engola, but also this Indian, are from the government side. Normally we argue it from the industrial side. So what do you reflect about this state of labor affairs in general?
First of all, thank you very much for having me today.
Yeah.
And thank you to our viewers for joining us.
Yeah.
I would like to, agree with my brother, my senior brother, Moses Byamgisha, that there is a fundamental problem with our society.
Yeah.
Because when you look at the murders that have, occupied public space lately, they touch the fundamental question of the welfare of the person, of the laborer.
Yeah.
And I was thinking, and I've been, following the shootings, I've been reading about the psychology. And what I've learned is that in a case like that of Sabiti, who was a private guard to Honorable Charles Engola, it can never have taken place in an overnight. It was premeditated. Because no one psychologically becomes a thief or becomes a murderer in an overnight. Meaning that this person has been subjected to a very extreme condition over a period of time. And the case of Sabit, we told he had been transferred to Mr. Charles Engola. From Mike Mukula. So just over a period of months. I highly suspect from a psychological point of view that the problem had developed just over 1 month. It means that it's a reflection of a bigger welfare environment within which our soldiers work in, within which the Uganda police forces work in, within which the private guards that guard these guys work in. And we all know the truth. The truth is that these guys' labor rights, their rights are not respected. Pick any security company, and I tell you that most of them are paid below 150. And they are guarding the richest people, the most affluent organizations in the country, the most affluent companies. the guys guarding, securing those places are earning less than 150. How much does a UPDF officer earn? How much does a police officer earn in this country? Where do they sleep? We are familiar with the pictures. Really, really sad pictures that depict the sorry state within which these security officers live.
And then, Harris, just to chip in there, I think it's generally agreed that the state of things is bad.
Yeah.
But just looking at it from another perspective, maybe going into the future, is someone like Sabit maybe a matter to this welfare movement? Of, I mean, I'm thinking of the soldiers in the barracks, looking at this and hoping that, okay, hopefully we cannot say a lot because we are soldiers, we follow a chain of command, but hopefully this Sabit situation, it doesn't then become a matter of the welfare, or it will continue to be an ignored issue.
Yeah, well, I wouldn't want to go that far as categorizing him as a matter, because personally I disagree strongly with violence of any sort, really. Yes. Even against people I strongly disagree with. I think that violence is a strong contradiction to our natural inclination of preservation of life. However, it happened, unfortunate as it is. So I think the relevance of that is whether, as a society, especially people, the laborers who, and everyone, council like like Biamjisha and other human rights defenders, any conscious member of society, it depends on whether we pick a leaf from what is happening, study it deeper, understand the drivers, understand the the conditions that could have provoked. Because, like I said, in the case of Sabiti, it must have been a sustained psychological situation.
Yes.
But maybe a few events between him and his boss actually acted as a spark. So whether we learn from this depends very much on how we pick it from there, learn from the situation, and organize very well, and have a movement of labor rights. And that's why I am very impressed with the conversation in Parliament. I hope it finally comes to fruition. I mean, the conversation around minimum wage. It has been there for long. And we've been saying, like my brother has said, that it is really, really, really cruel. It is unfortunate that you deploy a worker and this worker is unable to meet basic minimums of human life. They cannot pay for rent, they cannot send their kids to school, they cannot put a decent cloth on their body. And this is a whole group of laborers, of workers who are vulnerable. We can list them together. These are our drivers, these are our the private guards of those in the government, the security workers.
Even
for
domestic.
Domestic. Then we have the maids. I think actually the one which is least talked about, comrades, is one of the maids. I think we need a national convention of maids. Because I think that honestly, when you listen to stories of maids, it is appalling. And theirs is interesting because it's rarely talked about. There is no public platform to talk about the situation of the maids.
But I mean, if you look in terms of scandals, which is how normally Ugandans address their minds issues, for while soldiers would shoot someone like their boss, a maid normally would perhaps torture a child. And that's when like issues around maids are brought up. But then I thank you for that submission, Harris, and I liked when you brought about the issue of psychology, because these are crimes of passion.
Sure.
And it's interesting. But also moving on to the other murder, Mr. Bamgisha Moses, informed by a whole different psychology, I believe, was the assassination of a top vlogger in the country, Jaja Shuli. So many issues can be derived from Jaja Shuli. But first, I would like to know your reflection on the general political culture? Because I know this is just one, maybe an extreme, or just a normalcy within a political culture that we have groomed in the country. Yeah.
You know, we have a challenge of a stunted growth in our journey to democracy.
Okay.
Our process has stunted a bit.
Yeah.
Especially from around 2000
Yeah.
to now 2023. A lot of effort has been put in to make our democracy grow to the extent of even freeing political parties.
Yeah.
And the struggle to free political parties was a very serious struggle. But even after struggling to have political parties freed, democracy has not grown.
Yeah.
Because we were not able to realize the dream of having political parties. We still remained into, on one side, a military rule,
yes,
and on another side, a population that is struggling to free themselves from the military rule. And because of those and of that stunted growth in our democratic journey,
yes, please,
we've not had an opportunity to have civil conversations as a country. We've not had an opportunity to dialogue because the regime is preoccupied with regime survival politics. That even programs of government are designed for regime survival.
Yeah.
And so very little, if any time, has been spared for civic debate. So we've not had civic debate.
Yeah.
Now, what that means is that we are looking at other ways of resolving disputes. We are looking at other ways of settling disputes, settling scores, even politically.
Yes.
And I want to come from there to bring into perspective the death of that gentleman, Ichuri. Because, I mean, we don't have any record that he was a thief.
No.
All we know is that he was very vocal. He spoke his mind on whatever he chose to speak.
Which he has the right to. Just
Yes.
Yeah.
You can liken him to Afande Chirumira.
Yes, like Afande Chirumira.
Yeah.
They were very outspoken.
I would put them in the same class.
Yes, they were very outspoken on the issues that they believe in.
Yeah.
But because some of the truth is hurting to people socially and politically, and there is no other mechanism to outsmart you into a debate, they settle scores in that way. You know, this country previously had measures, had debates. I had an opportunity to attend some. Crab Obrigato, the Chimes of Crab Obrigato, Radio 1, was it? Yes, it was on Crab Obrigato on industrial area. People used to go there in big numbers and debate issues. CBS had its own platform. I don't recall it was called what? I have forgotten the name. Those were huge platforms where public officials would be called to account.
Yeah.
Government officials would be called there and they would account to the public.
Yeah.
Government silenced them and it killed them. Now, even efforts of entities like NGOs that would be creating platforms for civic debate.
Political science at Mackay.
Yes, you see government going an extra mile to cramp on them. So you have a population that is boiling. General Muntu, one of the great men we have in this country, used to describe the situation by saying the country is on a powder keg, which can explode anytime. So, on one side, you have a population that is struggling to free itself. On another side, you've got a regime, a group of people in power that are hell-bent on controlling the population by use of the gun. and that is fermenting all sorts of divisions along tribe, religion, region, and everything. Right now, if I am in a taxi and I pick a call and I say, "Hey, Murie mutoko muka," you will see people turn. See, that's very dangerous. So, lack of civic debate, our stunted growth in a journey to democracy, and having a regime that is hell bent on solving every issue using the gun, if not money, then stifles civic debate, and you've got all those cases coming up. And now impunity is setting in. Someone knows that you can actually be in this room, he shoots you, he moves away, and that will be all. Impunity of people who say, "I can do it, what can you do? What can you do?" You know, you see them shoving us off the road in their vehicles, pushing away ambulances. So the level of impunity has also grown so high. And so because there is the impunity is going through the roof, and so if everyone is looking at what is around me to solve the situation. Is it a stone, or is it a gun, or is it what? And that's where the danger is. Takes us back. It's very, very important that we create an environment that works for all of us. We've been talking about the issue of minimum wage. All we are saying is, kindly, let's have a basic minimum, little as it may be. You know, I am a member of the FDC party, and our policy position was that people like teachers, these police officers, at least let the lowest start from around 600,000. Now, I mean, you've got a teacher who is earning, I don't know the lowest now earns what, but I can imagine it's less than $500,000. But he can go in 3 months arrears. Now, it's just that the teachers don't have guns. But if they had guns, I think we would be having numerous assassinations. So let's create an environment that works for everyone. And by the way, some of us believe that this country is so rich, enormously rich, that it can provide for all of us in our own ways. If it's a salary for a government worker, let it reach in time. Why do you have to let the teacher go in 3 months arrears and he has to get his ATM, put it to a money lender, and the money lender has to be the one to withdraw when the salary is coming? What sort of misery is that? Of course, we are, by God's grace, we are surviving amidst these mean-looking, less-paid private security guards. A guy has a family of about 5 kids. Some of them are even active; they can have more than 2 women, and he is earning 150,000
a month,
and he is guarding you at home or guarding a bank or a shop, and you are and he's having that gun. All that is anger that is fermented.
Do you think the shootings could possibly, because now it appears, maybe if there's a third one, but it normally takes 3 to develop a trend, but it appears sometimes it just needs someone to.
Now
we saw leaders, for example, taking their guards to KFC.
Yes. No, the attitude of. No, we reflected. I can tell you that after the shooting of the Honorable Minister, everyone in his own way or her own way, we reflected on how we look at our domestic workers, on how we look at those boys at home that we leave our cows with, or what, on how we treat even workmates at workstations, that those whom we think we are superior. That girl who brings the tea girl at office, we reflected on how we treat them, and we felt like I think it's high time as a country we create an environment that supports everyone.
And thank you very much. And I think you do a very good job in. I thought these were 2 different matters at the beginning of the discussion, but you do a good job in showing how impunity is the underlying cause, and this culture that has brought about impunity, that an underlying cause within. Or underlying theme within all of these.
We just hope that it doesn't get out of hand, because now everyone is being say, hey, okay, so I can actually shoot him.
Yeah, that is
the power of the example.
Yes,
The power of the example is very,
because,
very, very
like
big.
you said, maybe we are lucky teachers don't have guns, but we have seen maids killing babies.
Yes,
and around for example, and I don't want to elicit any much, but there have been genocides without guns.
Yes,
You know, so those are things that.
No. I mean, Moses and Ola.
Yeah.
These are dangerous times. We can't take what is happening for granted.
Yeah.
Because one murder, people says okay, another one, and then it becomes a culture. And these are at a national level.
Yeah.
These are big violent acts. And what that does psychologically is that it is going to set an example across board at all levels, from the top to bottom. There is going to be an example of violence that is being taught, whether it is in school, whether it is at home, whether it is at work, anywhere. There is an example of violence being taught, and that's very, very, very bad. And I want to tell you where it comes from. It comes from the way government has treated its citizens. The other time you saw UPDF beating journalists with impunity. You've seen how it has been treating the opposition. In November, remember the November massacres, where we lost over 50 people. Those are examples of violence. You remember how, Kakwenza was tortured. You remember how Stellanyans was treated. You remember how Maseruko of Kasese was treated. Remember all these guys that have been kidnapped and taken away and dumped when they don't have fingernails, when they have their, their skin peeled off. These are violent examples. And these are lessons taught by the state itself, whose primary purpose is protection of the individual, both the person and the person's property.
But Harris, just to interject there, and also to your question, the president comes out making a strong statement on Twitter, saying this is not his modus operandi. It's not the way he operates. The NRA, which I believe is his default mode, and he uses the NRA only kills armed men in combat. And two, that he then goes on to give examples that security might be breached sometimes, but there have been instances where the government has effectively dealt, in his words, with them. He gives citing examples of Chidawalime, citing examples of, I think it was Bijambia, citing examples of the stopping of the bombings in town. What do you have to say, to the president's defense on that matter?
I would like to take you first and foremost to the founding of the state. Theoretically, why, as individuals, we surrender our rights, natural rights of self-governance to the state. The primary responsibility of the state is security. And whenever there is a failure of security, government has the highest responsibility to account. I'll start with the murder of Kawes. No report. We go to the Hajj, was it Chigundu? No report. There was, then followed was Abiriga, then there was Chirumira, then there is this one of Ichuri. There is no report. The one of Chedawalime, the one of Nagirinya, all the violent murders, assassinations, Joe and Kagezi, you remember. This is a series. It is a pattern. And this pattern these are not isolated events. They are interconnected. These are highly trained assassins. You can clearly see that these are people who are trained to shoot, to kill. In the case of Kawesa and I think Ichuri, they even confirm whether you're dead before they leave the scene. In the case of General Katumba Wamala, you clearly see these are highly trained assassins. So then the question that comes to our minds as ordinary citizens is, who is responsible for their hire? Who trains them? the government is supposed to make sure that it checks what comes in the country and what leaves the country, our borders. So if a government says they don't know, isn't that self-implicating that they have actually failed in their cardinal duty to protect Ugandans? Because all these murders, actually, if it were happening in any of these serious countries, that's enough to have a vote of no confidence in the regime. You lack credibility because you cannot solve any murder. And I can assure you that that has far-reaching consequences in as far as our fundamental freedoms are concerned. Because look at Chirumira, he was critical. Look at Ichuri, he was critical. So meaning that any person, any Ugandan who wishes to exercise their freedom of expression is going to be very, very careful. So that's a chilling effect on the freedom of expression. Anyone who wants to challenge this regime politically is going to be very cautious. So that's a chilling effect on the freedom of association. I've already talked about the teaching effect of these spate of events on the fundamental freedoms. So are we in a state of fear? Yes. What does security mean? It means 3 fundamental freedoms. That you are free from fear, and freedom of fear means you don't have fear of violence and the threat of violence. That you have freedom from want and freedom of indignity. All these are abused on a day-to-day basis, so they become part and parcel of our culture that we have normalized them. But it's wrong. It's wrong because I think if nothing is done, if we don't have a conversation of unnegotiable values, which among others includes treating each other well, making sure that this country provides for everyone. And I think we have resources, we have capabilities, we have means to provide the basic minimum for everyone, that we respect fundamental rights of everyone. As long as we don't have a conversation on national non-negotiable values, then I think there's nothing that stops us from saying that we are headed for a crisis.
You know, right, I was asking myself, if a gentleman in broad daylight, he has not even waited for darkness. In broad daylight,
at 1,
he walks. This is not a remote area like Rukunjiri, my home. No, this is at Parliamentary Avenue. I think apart from State House, the other well-guarded place is Parliamentary Avenue and Parliament itself. Cameras, guns, there are quite a number of guns on that street. Guy comes. Forget about even these big motorcycles, boy, he wants to run away. No. He comes, goes in, shoots someone, confirms that he's dead, walks out of the room, slopes the steps, gets on the street, makes a phone call, stops a border there, and he boards and he leaves, and there is no trace. There are 2 things. I can see 3 things in the mind of this guy. I can see anger and frustration. I can see impunity. Because just after Roger Chambers, where he shot dead that guy, is a parliamentary, is in Crane, what is this? Is another building used by parliamentarians for their offices. It's well guarded. Opposite it is farmer's house.
And they're all government installments.
Yes, there is enough security there. But someone said, it's okay, I will go there and I will kill him. Is it just ignorance? And this is not just indiscipline. You know what Museveni was talking about on Twitter? That these are just indisciplined officers. It's not just indiscipline. They are underlying social, psychological, political issues that we must resolve.
When you talk about the social, psychological, political issues, the surrounding people, should I call them bypassers or the bystanders, as we like to call them in law, in the aftermath of killing of Charles Ngola, actually said this gentleman also was walking, but he was asking the people to give way, to leave way, to go get away. Does that also speak to the psychosocial? Because I mean, it kind of looks like some the underlying emotion
But,
there is anger.
I actually don't think that like that particular incident that it is entirely psychological. If he had run mad, he would have killed everyone around, including his colleagues, including the people he fought. He went to the salon and said, "Get out, guys, get out."
Yes.
No, he was not mentally mad.
No, he was not mad.
He was not mad at
There
all.
there was some degree of mental frustration, yes. But he knew what he was doing. He knew the target.
Yeah, but
And he
psychologically,
knew the consequence of his action.
Moses, but psychologically, he prepared himself.
Yes,
for
he
the act.
prepared. And
Yes.
like he said,
Yes.
it did not happen that
No,
morning.
over a period of time.
No.
Yeah.
He had been
Which
thinking
is
about
ironical because if the president called him indisciplined,
No,
then
he's
in
not.
that moment he was actually still
I
maintaining partial discipline.
I really don't mind much about what Museveni says. I know that I know where his interest
I
is.
think he has become a chief pretender.
Yes, I know where his interest is. And for me, I don't mind. I mean, I saw him on Kororo the other day saying, you see, let's sacrifice. That's why for me, I work for 3 million. I said, oh, please. When you see So I don't mind on what he says. He will always say everything.
Yeah.
But I look at issues as a Ugandan and I'm like, where are these leading?
Yeah.
If this guy walks on Parliamentary Avenue and does this, what is going to happen to these other guys up country? What is going to happen to them? Everyone who is frustrated. What is going to... I want to live in a Uganda where my Shamba boy will know that if I have not paid him, he can go to a labor union or labor court, or he can go to any court of judicature, and he will get justice.
Yes.
So he will not resort to carrying a pang on me.
Yes.
He will simply go to court. He will go to police, and I will be put to task to. I want to be in Uganda where this police officer who perhaps borrowed money, let's say 500,000, and was not able to pay, knows that no, my salary is coming at the end of the month.
Yeah.
And by the way, I am not so stressed, I'm not so indebted. I can pay part of it to the money lender and reserve some. Not to go and end the life on less than a million, assuming that was the cause.
End his.
And good thing this one did not end his, would have had 2 families.
It is going to end
It is one way.
in one way or the other.
Yes. Thank you very much, my dear panelists. That brings us to the end of the first segment. What I've learned from you is issues around the power of example. As we can see, today's killing can be linked to a killing last week, but also that killing last week is linked to other killings in the past.
Yes.
And I think that you've done a good job to discuss the issues around the culture, general violent political culture. We shall be resuming for a second session where we discuss issues around police capacity, but also gun flows. How do these guns get into the hands of the citizenry? Because the guns that shot all the people in the last 1 week are still somewhere, and it could be any of us next. So stay with us, with me, Okotola, your host for Focus on Parliament today. Thank you.
Digital rights are those human rights and legal rights that allow individuals to access, use, create and publish digital media or to access and use computers, other electronic devices and telecommunication networks. Digital rights include a right to freedom of expression, information and communication through technology, a right to privacy and data protection, a right to credit for personal works, a right to universal and equal digital access, a right to identity, a right to anonymity, a right to be forgotten, and a right for protection of minors, among others. The state's digital rights are frequently violated through various unfair actions, for example, blockage of websites and social networks, theft of credentials, unauthorized use of people's data for personal gain, privacy intrusion, online censorship, arrests and intimidation of online users, internet blockages, and the proliferation of laws and regulations that undermine the potential of technology to drive socio-economic and political development worldwide. It is hence every citizen's responsibility to respect rights of other digital users and to speak out or report to the responsible parties when one's rights are violated.
Welcome back to another segment of the Focus on Parliament show today with me, your host, Okotola. Today we are discussing pretty tense matter, the state of security in the country. And in the first segment, we had the opportunity to reflect on the general political culture, which my colleagues did a good job of dissecting. And I hope for your dear viewers that it was as fruitful as it was for me. For this second segment, I'm joined by my endeared panelists. We have Biambisha Moses, an FDC mobilizer, but also the author of Beyond the Chance, an autobiography. We have Honorable Rita Atkwase, who we are honored to have from a very powerful constituent, Barasite. It doesn't get better than that.
The land of milk and honey.
You're most welcome, and we are really happy to have you. And then we have Honorable Harris Akampura, now a regular, but we are always honored by your great insights. He is the speaker of another great constituency.
No, it's a republic, the Republic, People's Republic of Kawempe.
Yeah, thank you very much for joining me today. And we continue with our discussion. And I'd like to give Honorable Rita Kwase a chance to give us her reflections. It has been a pretty tense week, and I told them earlier that we had about 4 different security incidents. The shooting of Honorable Charles Ngola, we had the Nagweru incident thereafter, then we had the shooting of famous vlogger, Jaja Ichuli, and just a few hours ago, close to your office, by the way, the shooting of an Indian gentleman. But for purposes of starting this discussion, this week, I believe Parliament had the opportunity to eulogize Honorable Charles Ngola. It's always sad to lose a colleague, but would like to know your reflections on him, but also in general, the issues that caused his shooting. Yeah, you're most welcome.
Thank you very much, and to the viewers, good to be here again. Always a pleasure. Always waiting to take the chance to come. I must say that I do send my condolences to all those who lost their dear ones.
Yeah.
Of course, critical, the focus is on those who were gunned down or violently lost their lives, but also in the city that I represent, out of the flooding, we did lose people. Oh. And right now, as I am speaking, the burial is going on in one village, Karugangama.
Yeah.
Nalongo lost his dear son. We also lost a high school student, at Mast, but also that the bridges are still broken, waiting for the Ministry of Works to perform their duty in an emergency.
Yeah.
And for me, what touches me is since I took office, I have relentlessly followed the matter of those 3 bridges. And the last time I had with my good leader, Katumba, the minister, as I told him, I said, it's going to be unfortunate for government to come when we have lost lives.
Yeah.
And I won't say I'm a prophet.
Like that was before.
Say. Yes, that was before. I think our last conversation about 2 months ago, trying to remind him. That was after Tali Sita. Of course, saying the money wasn't yet available.
Yeah.
And also in the bridges for Kanyeite side, and of course the bridge that links to Chitobero, we are having a surge of transport costs because the children, the primary school are on holiday, but the university is on. The bridge, Kanyeite, is a quick access point for a walk to the university.
Yeah.
But now you've got to pay about 12,000, 6,000 to go to the university and then back. That's no small amount of money. But also, like you said, losing a colleague. I did CRA in O-level, and they would teach us that for young people, and I think every other person, you really feel this when you've lost a loved one.
Yeah.
The person you've touched, a person whose voice you really recognize.
Yeah.
And the loss of the Honorable Minister near where I also live really was a shaker.
Yeah.
It's very unfortunate that he was given a famous name, Machadogo. Machadogo, whatever.
Volunteer.
For having fought for peace and made sure that people return to their homes.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, he really dies.
Yeah.
It's like it's like a paradox of sorts.
Yeah.
So it's very unfortunate, but I also want to say, even when he's not here, for the recognition, to recognize the effort he put, the work he has done to serve Uganda. And I think he was an activist of sorts. He stood for women. You know, people have a soft spot to raise issues of women, and they quickly pick them up. Like we had his colleagues at ministerial level say, but also in the corridors of parliament.
Yeah.
That when it came to issues to do with women, he was really very quick
as a labor
to act.
minister.
And also as a labor minister, he was really passionate about seeing Uganda improve in terms of labor standards, employment conditions, from within and also outside the country. Of course, voice is very important. For Ichuli or Isma, who passed on, linking really for who he was and for what we think it is to voice, that is very, very unfortunate. Because you start to die the day you don't speak.
Yeah.
Maybe for him he has died, but his words have remained and they will keep speaking. So we've lost him by face, but I think for what he stood for, will still be with us because it's on record, it is on history. And it's unfortunate that he died linking to what he was standing for.
Yeah.
For the Indian who has just been shot, it's very unfortunate and shaking, by the way, because borrowing money is responsibility. And when somebody dies quickly, the feelings come.
Yeah.
If it is true that from the police spokesperson that the murderer or the person who used the gun against him had borrowed money, probably he couldn't take any more. It's just a lesson to all of us.
Yeah.
The culture of borrowing, for me as an individual, is one I don't encourage. And especially borrowing for nothing. Because you run here, you borrow, you run there, you borrow, you run there. Eventually, you come to states of frustration where you are entangled with debts right, left, and center. And then the frustration can lead to anything. So there is responsible borrowing even then. You know, sometimes you say, I was hard up. Very true. Many people are hard up. But the step to borrow is great responsibility. If he was running 2 loans, maybe at legislative level, would want to point to think. I recently enrolled in one of the circles. I don't want to name it. And when they put me on their platform, I saw they were discussing an aspect of the Credit Reference Bureau. That how can circles actually demand for the cards they give to ascertain the status of a borrower.
Yeah.
Good enough, I think the victim in the murder for the money lending, they are legal. Because you can't be illegal and you're situated at Parliament Avenue. Maybe it is time that even those private borrowers or lenders to start to demand for records of the Credit Reference Bureau to understand the person you're giving money, how much debt do they have and their capacity to be able to pay back. I think that is very important.
Yeah.
That at whatever stage of trying to borrow or lend money, we can have an integrated system. Because right now, you know it, if I give you my 10K, I can't go anywhere to report to you that you refuse to pay me. I hope the public is aware that as a private person who is not registered, you are not allowed to borrow money, and you can end nowhere in legal structures trying to demand that a Kampurira has not paid. maybe those can be social structures like matoput and you know, like informal ways of doing. But in terms of the legal framework, I think that was cut out.
Yeah.
Yes, it is hard times, and especially when we are threatened with loss of life. You start wondering whether you want to move at night. I see people are rushing to say, asking, do you have a gun? Do you have a gun? Usually when I stop at checkpoints and they ask, you have a gun, I pull out my Bible and my rosary. And I said, I'm happy to hand you my instruments.
Of violence. That's a joke.
Yes, and I usually laugh. I said, I'm happy to hand you. Because, yes, guns.
Yeah.
The number of guns, I think, in the public have also gone up. The question is why? Personally, I have never felt insecure until actually when the police, the Indian was gunned down. Even when the minister passed on, I said, no, we are still good.
Yeah.
Even when they were showing news around the change and saying it's a security, I was saying, no, I think we are still good. But now the incident, because I was just crossing to go to Parliament, now really I have agreed that the insecurity needs to be capped down and at small levels. Because we usually fear, you hear ADF this side when they were in Toroko, you're hearing about the gun wrestlers. But now, it's, I can put it, are you armed?
No.
You don't know. Now you do not know. So I think the security agencies, the government, the president, they need a plan. They need to come back to us to assure us of security with concrete mechanisms. Because the private people that have guns, you don't know who has it.
And I mean, Harris, before you came, was talking about the power of example and how one sees someone gunning down and, you know.
Yes, and I actually want to appeal to the public, never copy bad examples.
Yes.
World over, we encourage you to copy things that add value to society.
Yeah.
I know you could be a security guard, you could be a maid, you could be, and you start thinking, I'll also vent out. But that also has consequences to yourself and your entire family.
Yeah.
I don't think this police constable that has gunned down that Indian is going to be the same again.
Yeah, but Honorable, with these examples, it's not that the member of the public is actually conscious that they are taking in a bad example.
I am calling on them now.
They are glued on their situation so much so that they don't have time to say, I am learning bad.
Let me tell you, if people would be taking bad examples and finish the world, women would have finished the world. Because they see many horrible things done to them. But as women, they hold on. They seek for peace. So that's why I'm putting out the voice. Do not just hear so-and-so is gunned down and you also think you're going to get a knife. You will be in big trouble.
Yeah.
Not even just you, but also your entire family.
Yeah.
That man, if he has a family, I'm telling you, that is a backward landmark.
Yeah.
So I am appealing to the population and whoever is listening to me that whatever bad examples of shootings or fights that appear, don't emulate that one.
Yeah.
Please do not. Because the conversations have gone on that because if your maid is hungry, you should retaliate against your employer. If a shamba boy is not happy, you should also be able to put holes in the tires. My dear, you will end in the wrong place. So what am I trying to emphasize?
Yeah.
That even when there are these pockets of insecurity that are threatening ordinary people like us, the law is still there and will deal with you with a firm hand. So let's keep law and order. I wouldn't want you to see this and then they say, please do not try it.
Yeah.
At home is very critical. Lastly, I also want to say, yeah, we would be discussing these insecurities to do with the guns. But I want to be on record that the insecurities in homes that are silent are quite much more than the few guns we have seen on the streets. If you walk to police, to the family protection unit, I think you will be overwhelmed. How many women and men have fought how many children have been defiled, how many people are forced to live on the street.
Yeah.
That's also a kind of level of insecurity without using a machine gun. So whereas all these have happened, I need to wake you up to the fact that we have insecurity of other forms of violence, and especially those that happen within our homes. So as we discuss this, that is also there and still requires attention, where women's bodies are used as battle grounds. Yes.
Thank you very much. And it's quite on a sad note that you have had 2 shootings close to you, one at your home and one at your office. But then another thing that I picked maybe from the beginning of, and which is kudos to you, is that many times people believe the people in government don't advocate for much. But we saw from your submission, you trying to fight for issues around pothole, the flooding, the state of the roads, etc., which I think it's something worth appreciating, and many more call-outs that you make. But you spoke a lot about guns, which is something that I want to pass over to my colleague, Honorable Harris. We have an influx of guns. Either they have just come in or they have been there, but they're now being triggered. But we have a lot of guns in the hands of the public, not just in the city, but we have seen in Karamoja, we have seen all over. We are all citizens of Uganda, and a wrong anywhere is a wrong everywhere within this context. So we know that the guns that shot people, for example, the last 3-4 shootings that have been of elite level or have provoked elite discussion, are still somewhere in the public. How do these guns really come into the hands of the citizens of Uganda?
I don't know whether I agree with your analysis that there is a lot of guns in the hands of the public, which guns have caused the violence we are talking about.
Yeah.
If we talk about the latest one, that one is a government gun. If we talk about the one that killed the Honorable Charles Ngola, it is a government gun. If we talk about the murders of, Afande, the late Afande Kawesi, Joan Kagezi, and all these, the Viroga Oryx, these are highly specialized weapons. The preliminary reports we have been, from those reports, we have learned that these are highly specialized weapons that you cannot easily find in the hands of the ordinary citizens. There is, of course, laws allow for purposes of personal defense, personal security, as long as you have gone through the rigors for an individual to go and acquire a gun. Even at our division, you can come in a Kawempe. If you go through the security checks and you pass, you can acquire a gun. And that is, of course, the framers of the laws were in cognizance of the fact that the fundamental human instinct is that of life preservation of life.
Yeah.
But my point of departure is that these are actually not the guns that are causing the violence that we are talking about. These seem to be high level, these seem to be highly specialized, and these seem to be targeted at specific individuals. Let us not confuse the one that killed the unfortunate one of the Indian moneylender and that one of Sam Ngola.
Charles.
Yeah, Charles Ngola.
Yeah.
Sam is the brother. Sorry about that.
Yeah.
Well, these are the 2 examples now. These are offshoots from the trend. I've already talked about the state teaching violence. So these are offshoots. Now, next time you're going to hear, God forbid, a security guard somewhere at a private company taking their boss. You're going to hear another violence somewhere elsewhere and spreading out of Kampala beyond and far from what the state imagined. Because I think that these targets that are highly specialized are usually targeted for either what they talk about or something related to their nature of work. But now we are going to have, them spread out to even ordinary lives like the Indian. That's that's a very, very, very personal relationship. The one between an ordinary citizen and a money lender. But what is the underlying factor beyond all these? The Honorable, just called upon the public to say, don't copy these examples. But I think that the sustainable solution, Honorable, that we need to push for at Parliament is one that ensures a welfare for everyone, to make sure that we create an environment where each member of this society called Uganda is able to fend for themselves and their families. That is the very first security safety net. And for as long as we don't provide for that, the natural instinct within the human being is self-preservation. And once a human being is pushed to the wall by conditions, external conditions that they perceive to be beyond themselves, they are going to resort to extreme measures in preservation of life. And we don't want to reach there. So government, in our social contract, under our constitution, they have a big responsibility to make sure that they create the necessary conditions that enable each individual member of this republic to earn a living. That is number one. Number two, and related to number one, is that we pass laws that compel employers. Every family that employs a maid, there must be a minimum. And I'm typically concerned about maids because we rarely talk about them. They are not armed. This now I have seen, the security guards now being taken for KFC, are being now treated nicely to cakes. I saw the Lord Mayor also giving his private guards cakes. They were the ones. So there's a conversation happening. But the maids, just like if you remember the history of the women's struggle, the domestic violence, Honorable, there was a lot of, it took a lot of time to change the plight of a woman in a family because the dominant perception then was that family matters are private matters. So whatever takes place there, the state cannot reach there. Even when you're battered, even when you're raped, whatever kind of abuse that goes in the family, that shouldn't be reported. Now, thanks to human rights activists and everyone who has made a contribution, we now see that the rights of the woman, especially in the family, is being respected, and we want to see the same in the light of the maid. The maids are rarely talked about. They are treated poorly. You look at them when you meet at them at church or in these shopping malls. You look at the kids and look at the family. You can clearly see that this is the maid. These are members of the family. Clearly, because our bodies register these memories. You look at her and like, this is the maid. Why? You are not told. You don't need to be told. That's a reflection that she is being treated quite differently from the rest of the family members. But we are all humans. We are part and parcel of the same creation. It's like, we are. If I use an allegory of the sea, of the ocean, it's like we are water containers, but we are all drawn from the ocean.
But Kampuria, for me, there's one thing I don't want to divert from.
Yes.
That the underlying, there must be underlying factors anyway. And one of them, by the time you kill, you have actually lost self-control of your emotion, of your faculties. You have probably, your resilience has given away. You understand?
But then there are push factors to that.
Because the truth of the matter is, otherwise, the way Uganda is right now, and the states, since I was born, I think the strive to be better can never stop. Because by human nature, the world changes, the world progresses, and we must always strive to be better. When I was in primary school, I don't think it's the same rate of payment of a teacher until now. But even now, we want it to be better. So for me, that cannot be an excuse to kill. But what is underlying, even when the eulogy for Honorable Ngola, the late, was on, the issue was to do, are we taking care of the mental health? Very fundamental. And that's what it points at. Because by the time an individual, you cannot anymore withstand the pressure you have, and you want to kill someone thinking you're solving a problem, that points to something. That points to stress. That points maybe you're depressed. That points that in your inner capacities, you can no longer hold
but
anymore. But you cannot say because you're paid less, you will kill. That I do not agree. You cannot. We have even seen people killing, rich people killing, points a wife a gun, and kills. So all those underlying issues are so several.
But except honorable, if you allow, from what we have learned from the killer of Charles Ngola,
first of all, his story was of indiscipline.
No. But let's look
Did you follow that?
Let's look at the welfare. What we also learned from the relatives and family is that he was struggling to fend for his family.
Yes.
Now, in this case of the Indian moneylender, we see exactly the same comparison. What is that? That the policeman has been highly indebted. And we also know how much the policemen are paid.
We
know the push
For me,
factor.
that is my point of, I have been an employee and I am still an employee. Let me tell you, even if you are a primary teacher, financial discipline of how you spend within your means remains in your hands. Let me tell you, even if they pay you 7 million and you have no financial discipline, you are the one who is going to end up not even paying your rent. I want to differ. Because when you go for periodic loans and you gather them, who is responsible for that? Isn't that personal responsibility? You understand? I have been in society. I have worked from low level to high level where I am now. I have all those experiences. Where you are even struggling, you're looking for 10K to go back home. Must you run and borrow? No. That one is personal responsibility.
Honorable.
But also pointing to the issue is the issue of the mental. How come this man didn't kill the Indian?
Honorable, as I conclude my submission, thank you for the interjection and for avoidance of any doubt to our viewers. I am in no way in support of use of violence. I do not support any form of murder. Any form of murder, even those who have been convicted as criminals.
Yes.
Who according
so that we
to
don't say people are stealing because they are paid.
Just a moment. I just want to be categorically clear that I even don't support them the murder sentence. I don't support that. I don't support even the slightest form of violence, even if it is battery or any form of assault. I don't support it. In any relations, I don't support any violence. Even using abusive words. If you abuse me, I just smile at you and leave. I know there's something wrong. But we must approach this discussion holistically and honestly. Because we know that the triggers, yes, I appreciate the fact that each individual has a duty to be responsible for themselves. I agree. But that cannot blindfold us of the underlying conditions that the greatest number of Ugandans are going through, which deserves a remedy. Because if we do not treat these underlying conditions, then we are going to have more and more people being pushed to the uncontrolled state of mind that you have talked about. And that's my whole point.
Yeah, thank you very much. And very interesting debate there on underlying conditions. Our Honorable Rita having hers, but Harry is also having his. Over to you, Mr. Moses, just to bring you back into this discussion. And a very brief question. Does the police have the capacity to deal with this situation?
There is one time when I observed that you will not feel the presence of security or the armed forces in this country unless they have come for you over a political issue. When you will go in many areas and you will not feel the might, how strong we are as a country in terms of security. Until that moment when you have engaged politically and you are in the opposite side. So it's not capacity. I don't think, I think like Honorable Rita was saying, we are a better country than we were in 1986. In terms
I didn't say that.
Oh.
Yeah. Don't
that's what he understood.
Probably. You should say I have understood.
That's what I understood you to have said.
At least I can speak for myself.
Okay.
So are you speaking to the strength
86 hours so little to understand how the country was.
Yes.
In terms of state building?
Yes. I think we are, in terms of state building and in terms of capacity, we are a much better country and a much more formidable state. And our security is more formidable. But beyond the guns, beyond the numbers of the armed men, of the armed forces that we have, there are those soft issues, underlying issues, that downplay our would-be strong force and our effectiveness. I want to believe that that gentleman who fired bullets today is under someone's command. He's certainly under someone's command. And so, but because beyond his command, he had these other issues to struggle with. And my colleagues have spoken quite at length regarding financial discipline at individual level and everything else. But beyond that, the social underlying issues of how the society, of how we are treated, of how the systems of government are working to support us, is something that puts us back on the wall. So for me, ordinarily the forces would be having capacity. I mean, I think we have capacity. That is why we have there has been some high degree of peace in most parts of the country, especially peace in terms of gun and gun violence. Peace in terms of mind and what to eat, that we can debate. But peace in terms of gun violence, there has been relative peace in most parts of the country. That speaks to our strength, because of course there has been attempts to destabilize peace of the country. You talked about this incident of Nabwel. Of course, you know, the other challenge we have is that we no longer have trust in our government and its institutions. There are quite a number of us who think that thing was even stage managed. I mean,
remember the guns of Kyagulanyi Narua?
Yes,
And
because there have been.
You think it was a diversion?
Yeah, some kind of diversion, stage manage it. Someone is trying to account for allowances, you know, create a situation that enables you to make a operational allowance, you know, because we saw a tweet from the spokesperson of the UPDF saying, "Hey, media, rush to Nabwel, go and see what is there."
But for me, I really want to say that you know, when you are in a point of insecurity, for me, I think it's not something that can be downplayed. We were all here when the tax park was burning with bombs everywhere. We were here when the people died at Rugogo. So for somebody to come and say that there was a bomb, let me say, use the word bomb scare, and you want to make it cynical and look like it was staged by the security agencies, I think that is too
I don't think the Honorable is saying.
No, that is what he's saying.
No.
Somebody is looking for an allowance.
No.
And therefore,
what I have understood
has gone ahead to stage manage.
I think that what the Honorable has said, Mr. Byamujisha, is that there is an erosion of public trust in our security agencies. And so you do not know when they are telling the truth and when things are being stage managed. You don't know when, for example, how do you separate the fact of that bomb scare in Agweru from the guns that were paraded, that were found, allegedly found in the room of Chagulanyi?
How do you distinguish those are two different?
I think Honorable is concluding his.
So for me, we are operating in an environment where, as a public, we have withdrawn trust from government and its institutions, and yet the public is another arm of building a formidable security community through community policing, because all of that before the public should be part of our security effort as a country. But if you have the public that has lost confidence in the security, that have lost trust in the security,
exactly,
then I mean, everyone is like, we do not mind. After all, these guys, we don't even know their intentions. You know, they are comical in whatever they say. They make everything seem simple, even things that should have been serious. They make everything seem simple. They have talked about those child on the bombings. I need to check with you. I don't know whether we have a conviction in the court. I'm not sure. Of course, they made the arrests in this Nabwel thing. But at the end of the day, we will be here. We will get stories. And you will get to know the drama. You will get to know what. Even some criminals run through the arms of the security because of those lapses that we are talking about. So the capacity of the security is also undermined by the loss of public trust in the security, because we do not think that we have seen them engage in a drama. Like I've told you, the only time really I see them very serious is when they're engaging in politics. There, they will be very serious. They will deploy in Kampala Road. They will shoot everyone down. They will cause bodies to disappear so that even the numbers cannot be accounted. If it is Vesije or whoever, or Chagulanyi, you will see them swing in action. Why? They are informed of what I mentioned earlier. The whole operation is regime survival. Regime survival security measures, regime survival politics, regime survival in terms of delivery of government, of service delivery. And so for me, that issue of public trust being lost undermines our capacity.
Yeah. Honorable, you are responding to him.
For me, I really would want to appreciate the security agencies. I move at night most of the times for their sacrifices, the operations that I meet, very often leaving their families to sleep on those patrol cars to make sure to the utmost that Ugandans are safe. And I do not take that for granted. And I also actually implore and that when security agencies call for good servicemen, please, those who are still young and able-bodied, go with good intentions to serve Uganda. Recently, when Ntoroko was threatened with insecurity, these are not new things. I was actually taken aback to see one of the honorable colleague of my friend from the side of one of the other opposition party asking, why would government even be going to spend money in Ntoroko? I felt that was unfair. To trivialize people's lives at stake, a point of insecurity is very critical, because when a life is lost, you can never regain it. Political parties, we can fight, and political parties can change. This one today is NUP, tomorrow is NRM, the other day is FDC in ruling. But for a life, we can never have Angola, we can never have Ichuli. That Indian has lost his life. So for me, security matters are critical because they enable us even to sit here and discuss. I went to South Sudan when we were having the parliamentary games. Their situations I've never seen. When they talk about 86, I was a small baby. I know nothing about the war. But when you're there, you really now, actually it was like an exposure of what insecurity in terms of guns really is, from one point to another. That even as you are in the center of the capital, they're not even sure you reach your hotel where you're going. Anything can go wrong. And that exposure to areas of conflict in our neighbors here has made me appreciate much of what Ugandans usually take for granted. Oh, what is peace? Do we eat peace? Do we sleep? But it is very critical. I want to underline that it is the government responsibility and the security agencies to make sure that even no Ugandan loses their life, especially in the hands of the gun, that we can't run away from it. That it is their responsibility. That's why I started by calling on them. They must come out and align the strategies they're going to put to make sure we feel safe as before. And also to make sure that, you imagine, it's not a week that another person has been gunned down today. So that tomorrow we don't hear another story of that kind. Because especially people who never touch guns, that threatens us. Because you start feeling you shouldn't move, you start feeling you will not trust the person next to you. So I call upon the security agencies. Yesterday I watched the Minister of Internal Affairs, General Muhoozi David.
I believe that should be Jejo.
No, Muhoozi David is the Minister of State in that portfolio. And you know, when they are relaxed talking, as a person, you are like, oh, is he serious? So please, we want them to come out and be able to assure. But also, the police, if they need further training or retraining, I think they should be able to embark on that.
And maybe impart
because there are military man, UPDF being involved, a police officer being involved. It's just two numbers, but that speaks volumes. We don't want it to go beyond that to another person. So on my behalf and the public, for me, I think we take it very serious that we are getting much insecure.
Thank you very much, my dear panelists. Our time is fast spent, but I would like to give you, in a disciplined way, 1 minute, just to give a way forward and maybe your remarks to our difference. This show is meant to advise parliamentarians, but also the public at large. As you said, the public is also an arm of the government. So I'll start with you, Honorable Harris, then I'll go to Honorable Mr. Moses, and then finally Honorable Rita.
Is also Honorable Moses?
Yeah,
Honorable Moses.
Thank you so much once again, and thank you to our viewers for staying with us all this long. My concluding remarks really is a clarion call to all of us as Ugandans to really demand for an honest conversation from our leaders. We need a grand reset in terms of national values. I call them non-negotiable values. Values like treating each other well, values like respect of human rights for everyone, irrespective of their political party, irrespective of their religion, irrespective of their ethnicity. Values like, respect for fundamental freedoms, freedoms of expression. These are, rights which are clearly stipulated in our constitution. So honestly, if we are to live in a society that is harmonious, then we must develop a culture of caring for one another. And of course, that means a big responsibility for especially the parliamentarians to engender a conversation, but not only parliamentarians, even the general public to demand that these conversations actually do happen. And when we have this conversation, I begin that will, mean a new chapter for our country, Uganda.
Thank you very much, Honorable Harris of Kawempe. Mr.
Republic.
Moses.
Yeah, Kawempe Republic.
Mr. Moses.
Yes, thank you very much. We are proud for the security to the extent that they've tried. We know that all is not lost. And we appeal to the people concerned that we step up our game so that this anarchy does not continue. We can't afford to see Mogadishu here. And I'm afraid just a few more bullets can turn Kampala to be an isolated town. So we just have to work hard together. And this responsibility is not only for the armed people, but I think as citizens as well. Let's make our contribution. Politics aside, this is our country.
Yeah.
Like my colleagues were saying, all of these colors can change and we end up wherever we want to end up. But we have this country. Maybe I'm Dusha Moses. I'm Chiga from Rukunjiri. I am born in Uganda. I'm not going to be a Congolese or Burundian or Rwandese. I am Ugandan. This is the only country that I have. So I think it is very, very important as Ugandans to make this effort. The rest of the struggles to make our country better, to make our democracy grow, they can continue. You know, they can continue. Along the way, we shall reach there. But let's do the immediate thing. Make your contribution as a citizen to live in a better country so that our kids can grow up in a country that they can comfortably call home.
Yeah, thank you very much, Mr. Moses. And I will be on the lookout for sure for your book, Beyond the Chance. Yeah, and over to you, Honorable Rita Tukwas.
For all the men out there, speaking up is a tool and mechanism, sometimes to manage problems that possibly you feel are beyond your limit. And I know men usually think, I will do it myself, until when you get to the point of turning a gun against somebody. So I call on you to seek help. Seek help. And I think security agencies, this is pointing at them, provide mechanisms in your structures for people to seek help psychologically. Is also very, very important. When they are pressed with situations they may not be able to handle anymore. And also to say that security, we are our first personal security mechanism. Vigilance is very important for all citizens. And finally, to say that for security agencies, we have all hope in you. That what you've done before to curtail certain insecurities of different ways in Kampala, in Uganda, please do it again, so that we can all feel safe again. I mean, to go dance at night, to be able to go to the garden freely. You know, in northern Uganda, the other day, they were attacked from soldiers of whatever nature from South Sudan against Ugandans. So all hope to keep safe in terms of guns is in your hands. So please do it again for us.
Yeah, thank you very much, Honorable Rita, and all of you, my dear panelists today. It has been a very enriching discussion, one in which I personally have learned a lot. And to our dear viewers, I hope that you have also picked a message or two. It remains to us that we all remain vigilant, but also to call out to action the responsible stakeholders. It was another amazing episode of Focus on Parliament show with me, your host, Okot Ola. Till next time. Thank you.